Hey everyone, welcome back to Even Tacos Fall Apart. I'm MommaFoxFire, and today we're digging into a topic that I know so many of us can relate to: self-love, self-care, and burnout. This episode is a little blast from the past. I recorded this interview back in 2021 with Jessica Medina, who was known as Jessica Ehrman at the time. Since then, she's gotten married, changed her last name, so if you hear me calling her by a different name in the interview, that's why. Now, I want to start by saying this is not going to be your typical fluffy chat about just love yourself and everything will be fine. We all know it's not that simple. Life is messy. Self-love can be incredibly hard. Self-care can feel impossible when you're overwhelmed. And burnout can sneak up on you even when you think you're handling things. We're going to get real about it today because that's how we do things on this show. Self-love is something a lot of people struggle with, myself included. It's not about looking in the mirror and always liking what you see. It's about accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all, and deciding you're worth the effort it takes to care for yourself. But when life keeps throwing curveballs, it's easy to let that slip. Demands pile up, stress builds, and before you know it, you're running on empty. That's when burnout happens, and it's brutal. It affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, just everything. So if you've ever felt completely exhausted by life, this episode is for you. Today's guest, Jessica, is a marriage and family therapist who really understands this stuff on a deep level. Not only does she work with clients who are trying to figure out how to balance everything, but she's been through it herself. She shares some of her own stories, including why she had to fire her own therapist, which is something I think a lot of us need to hear. Therapy is supposed to be for you, and if it's not working, you can walk away. Jessica has this great way of talking about self-care that's more than just bubble baths and yoga. Though, if those work for you, then that's awesome. She really breaks down the importance of knowing when to draw boundaries, how to keep your own needs in check, and why we all need to stop feeling guilty about taking care of ourselves. I really want you to listen to this episode, not just with your ears, but with your whole self. Because if you're dealing with burnout, or if you're struggling with making time for self-care, this conversation might give you the push you need to prioritize yourself. We get into some practical tips too, like how to handle negative self-talk, how to spot the early signs of burnout, and why it's okay to say no sometimes, even to the people you care about the most. So whether you're here because you're in the thick of burnout, or because you're just curious about how to take better care of yourself, this is an episode I think you'll really connect with. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with a friend who might need it, and if something resonates with you, drop a comment or send me a message. I love hearing from you and how these conversations impact your life. Okay, let's jump into the interview with Jessica Medina, recorded back in 2021 when she was still Jessica Ehrman. Like 90% sure that I have forgotten something. I just don't know what it is. But that's okay. Hey, Nick, how are you? We'll get it figured out for sure.
I'll figure it out.
Yes, we'll get there. It's all good. Hi, everyone. Happy Mental Health Monday. I am so glad that you're here, and I'm really excited that we have a returning guest. So Jessica Ehrman has agreed to come back and talk to us today. We're going to be talking about self-care, self-love, and burnout, and I'm really excited to kind of do a little bit of a light dive into each of those topics. So welcome everyone who is here with us. Angel Meat, thank you so much for that lurk. Frost, hello. Nick, hello. Bite, hello. Look, oh man. Oh, you got to do it you got to say first without the exclamation point for sure. And then you'll get it. Smile. Hi, welcome. For those of you who are not familiar with how this goes, we will have a question queue open. That's what I forgot. That is what I forgot right there.
There you go.
I forgot the queue. All right, let me do that real quick. We will have in a few brief a few brief moments, a question queue open for you guys to ask questions live in chat and have Jessica and I address them as they come up. So if y'all are interested in asking any questions, feel free to just put them in chat. I do watch chat pretty closely, but if you want to make sure that they get seen, put them into the question queue. And so our returning guest, thank you so much for being here, Jessica. Jessica Ehrman is a registered associate marriage and family therapist. She's been a therapist for 2 years and graduated from Pepperdine University with her master's in clinical psychology, emphasis in marriage and family therapy. She loves creating innovative and fun pop culture-based therapy interventions such as Roblox, Animal Crossing, and Inside Out. She uses techniques like mindfulness, play, geek culture, and pop culture to explore the chaos that can be everyday life. As a therapist, her goals are not to try to fix people, give advice, tell someone what to do, assume what is best for someone, have all the answers, or make hard stuff go away. As a therapist, her goals are to remind clients that they aren't broken, give someone room to access their own wisdom, support people in figuring out what to do, and work together on how to make the hard stuff easier to sit with, which I definitely appreciate. She has extensive experience working with children, teens, and adults, school-based counseling, trauma, anxiety, divorce, depression, OCD, grief, LGBTQIA+, alternative lifestyles, suicide ideation, self-harm, and healing from difficult family dynamics. And she also has experience creating curriculum for and facilitating an anxiety and survivors of sexual assault group. I do have some links for you guys. I have her Twitter, I have her website, and I even have a tags presenter link for you still. So if you have any questions related to self-care, self-love, burnout, feel free to just pop them into the chat. And Jessica, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. It's always a blast. I'm glad to be here.
And I love your hair. Happy Monday. Yes.
Thank you.
So last time you were with us, we talked a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you to being a mental health specialist. Now I'm curious to know, do you have a mental health care provider, and why or why not?
Yes and no. So kind of a funny story. I got ghosted by my therapist this week, which I've actually heard is increasingly common, especially since the switch to the pandemic, or the switch during the pandemic. There you go. Words are hard sometimes. So basically, my therapist had a family emergency, which I get. We all have, and they ended up getting sick, and I didn't hear from them. During this time, I had my own things going on. I got hit by a car, dealing with that. So I fired my therapist, which actually is something that you can do if you don't feel like your therapist is a good fit. And in that moment, I didn't feel supported, and I really needed that therapy. And it's been about a month since I've been in therapy. So definitely need more consistency, but I'm huge on therapists having their own therapist. We deal with a lot in the day-to-day, and we're humans too. So everyone honestly can benefit from having their own therapist. So I do, but not right now, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I feel like we've talked a lot on this channel, especially about you can absolutely fire your therapist, but the thing behind that, firing your therapist, is go find one that works for you. And so it's like, it's totally fine to not have a therapist right now because you just fired somebody, as long as you recognize that you do need one for whatever you're going through, and you seek one out. You know, it's kind of that, fire your therapist, but if you need one, go get one.
Before you do fire your therapist, I encourage you to have an open and honest conversation, because as much as we are in your brain, we're not mind readers.
Yeah.
So sometimes we don't know what an intervention isn't working, or it is. For me, it was simply I needed the support, and she wasn't able to provide it with where she was at right now. She's a phenomenal therapist. If you're watching, I love you, girl. You're amazing. But right now, I need that consistency. So, but definitely talk to your therapist. I've had very rough conversations sometimes of, hey, what you're doing, your style, I don't like your face, doesn't work for me, and that's okay. I'm not going to be the best fit for everybody, and it's humbling. It definitely is. But talk to your therapist before you fire them. But it's definitely okay to fire a therapist. 100%.
Right. Absolutely. Smile said, "Oh my God, sorry. So sorry to hear about your accident. Glad you're okay." And I echo that. I'm really glad that you're doing okay now, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. It was not fun in terms of pain, but I'm doing good now. I see toxic. Why are they claiming toxic?
That was to Frost because he Smiles to stop interrupting with her lovely comment of "sorry to hear about your accident." Smiles, you interrupt us anytime, girl. Anytime.
Always, always, always.
Yes, yes. So Laugh for Purpose asks, what advice would you give a couple where one person is gung-ho for couples therapy, but the other half of the couple does not believe in couples therapy? And I have a personal experience with this, by the way, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you address from your side of things.
So one party doesn't want to be there, one party does. That's rough. That's rough. I mean, I would say meet in the middle, but I would also emphasize how everyone really can benefit from an unbiased opinion, whether it be individual therapy, whether it be couples, but it's really in trying to find someone who's the right fit for the couple itself. And that's hard. That's really hard. It's hard to do therapy with someone who doesn't have the buy-in and kind of approaching of, yeah, I know you don't want to be here, but since you're here, what can we get out of the time together?
Yeah. And my experience goes back to when I was married, and my ex did not want to go to therapy, but it was either that or we were going to get a divorce, which we did wind up getting a divorce much, much later. But and it was one of those like, look, you have a choice. We can either try to work this out, and clearly trying to work it out between us isn't working. We both recognized there were issues. It wasn't one of those like he wasn't in denial that there were issues. He knew there were issues. He just didn't want to do the work. And that was pretty indicative of him as a person, not of therapy. And so I feel like it depends on what is going on with you and the other person.
Really
yeah. And so if it's something that, you could say, like, let's try just 5. Let's try going 5 times and see how it goes. And then we can revisit. Like maybe you could do let's take the step and then we can talk about it. And as long as that communication is there and you're talking about how both of you are feeling, if they're willing to even give it a try. And that's the question is, are they willing to give it a try?
Yeah, 100%. What I've done with my couples as well, I've worked with couples where one clearly wanted the relationship, one didn't. So as a therapist, I meet in the middle and I make it clear, like, look, like we're not working on a relationship, we're not working on being single. Let's just work on communicating. Because bottom line, if you have children, especially if you have children in the picture, you need to be able to communicate on a fundamental level. Regardless if you're friends, regardless if you hate each other's faces and want to stab each other, doesn't matter. You need to learn how to communicate, especially if you need to work on a common ground as kids,
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So as a therapist, what is one thing that can instantly make or break your day when you're with clients? And then I guess as a client, what's one thing that can make or break a session also?
Ooh, that's fun. Something that can make or break my day. I would say, I mean, not much can make or break my day, but I'm huge on the clients having their safe space in therapy. So nothing gets me angrier than people not respecting that time. So like siblings butting in, parents screaming at them, things like that, and not having that time respected. Or if you're in the middle of some deep trauma work and like a sibling enters the room, it's like, oh man, like gotta bring you back, gotta reconnect. And it can be very intrusive for them. And then it catches me off guard. It's hard to get the thoughts back on track sometimes. But what bugs me as a client, I'm huge on being respected. Huge on being respected. So, I mean, yeah, that can make or break my day too if I feel like someone's just blatantly disrespecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Like being rude, above and beyond rude. Because I've worked with 5-year-olds, like they're the rudest people you'll ever meet. And brutally honest, let's be real. But like sometimes the parents as well, or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
dealing with like a teacher or the significant other of a client, and that blatant disrespect is not fun. But as a client, I would say therapists arriving super late to session and not letting you
Yeah.
know what's up. Like, if you're
Yep.
running late, just send a text. That's all I ask. Like, I'm making this time out of a busy day, and for you to not be like, "Hey, I'm running late," like it's really rude. So
Right.
that's my thing. Like in session, it's really hard to feel respected in that moment if my therapist can't respect my time.
Yeah. I was just talking to my 14-year-old about this as well. So school just started back up. And they were talking about, I want to go back to therapy. And I asked them, do you want to go back to in-person therapy or do you want to try virtual again? And they were just like, I don't want to do virtual again. And I think a big part of that is you could just get interrupted so easily. And it's not
You really
because,
can.
like they go to their room, they close their door. I don't go in there. I try to keep little brother out of there. like, but there's dogs and cats and just so many distractions and
God.
things. And so,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's just like, it's easier to go to a dedicated space and kind of have that it's like what I used to do for work. So whenever I would drive to work, I would do, when I got halfway there, I had to switch off my home brain, turn on and start thinking about work. And same thing whenever I was coming back, I would give myself until a halfway point and there was one billboard and I would, until that billboard, like I could think about work. And as soon as I hit that billboard, I'm like, all right, you got to switch mom brain back on, switch home brain back on, start thinking about what am I going to make for dinner? What am I going to do for this? What am I going to do for that? It's the same for me,
100%.
at least. And I think for my 14-year-old as well with therapy, it's much easier to focus on therapy if you are there in person. And so
100%. I
from
mean,
home, for sure,
I was
it's a struggle.
yeah, I was the same way when I was in person. I had that ritual, and it was a lot like I would go to the gym after work, or
Mm-hmm.
I would have a nice scenic drive to the clinic. And I mean, I love telehealth, and don't get me wrong, but I do miss that kind of wind down on
Yes.
my way
Right.
home. But being telehealth has been, I'm 100% telehealth right now. And it's been wonders on my immune system. I had a kid sneeze in my sand tray. It was so gross.
Oh
And
no.
I work with a lot of little kids. So anytime someone got sick, I would get it without
Yeah.
fail. And somehow I didn't get lice. I don't know how. I don't know how.
Ooh, that
But
makes my
nothing
head
like finding
itch.
out at the end of the day, like, oh, by the way, your kid. And I'm just like, no. But being home is kind of nice because I don't have to worry about dog sitters. I can wear what I want. I'm a lot more comfortable, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
PJs, other than, I mean, I call it the therapy mullet. I'm business on top and comfort on the
Yep.
bottom. I have fuzzy monster slippers. It's really nice. And it's nice to be able to, like, the biggest thing for therapists, we forget to eat. Like, we legit
Mm-hmm.
forget to eat. If you ever want to get your therapist something, show up to session with snacks. Like, we will love you forever. But we typically only have like a minute, 2 minutes between sessions to go to the bathroom, catch up on notes, like, and then the break room's so far from where our workroom is or where the session rooms are. So for me, I walk 3 feet and I'm at the refrigerator. So it's a lot better for me health-wise to be telehealth, and I'm able to see clients at their time. I have some clients who are in school and I'm able to see them on their lunch break or they live super far from me. So in that sense, it's a lot better. And taking disabilities into effect and those who don't have mobility, it's a lot easier to not have to commute to. And for me, I'm in pain. I'm able to easily go from here to my bed, which is a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
So I see where it can help in terms of that. But for me also, I'm able to use a lot more technology in sessions now that I'm online than when I was like school-based, where we didn't have internet. Or, I mean, the school did, but we didn't have access to that often as outside providers.
Yeah.
Or at the agency, I wasn't able to lug an entire laptop and all my games here. It's right here, ready to
Right.
go.
Right.
And I'm hard of hearing. So I'm able to actually hear my clients a lot more clear. I don't have to have them repeat themselves. We don't have interruptions of other clinicians knocking on the door, trying to see if someone's in the room. And I mean, you have your give and take with both, but I personally prefer telehealth
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So Smiles asked, how many sessions does it take for you to get to know a client and get in a groove with them?
Depends. Are you me or are you other? And I say that with the most humble sense ever. I know my ego is as vibrant as my hair, but for me, I don't tend to have difficulty because I bring my full authentic self into the room and I don't put on this like fake persona, but also with my clients, I approach therapy a little bit differently, especially the initial sessions than a lot of other therapists do. A lot of the other therapists jump straight in with a battery of questions. I mean, I do have to do my assessments, of course.
Yeah, sure.
But I make it clear like, okay, so we did our assessment. We're going to put that to the side. Because right now I want to get to know you as a person. I want to get to know you as an individual. So let's play some video games together. Let's talk about your fandom. Like we can talk about the mental health, but let's talk about you first. And I think taking that and putting it to the side and getting to know the individual makes them feel a lot more comfortable because we have time. We will get to their mental health, but it's important that they feel comfortable with you first to do so. So I play Roblox, like I'll play games, I'll shoot the shit all day long because I want them to feel comfortable at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, textbook, they say about a month or about 4 sessions or so at the minimum, but it can take, I mean, it can take years. It can take months. It really depends on the vibe and it depends on each other. Like, are you open to connecting with your therapist and vice versa? Is your therapist confident enough in their clinical capacity to be able to build that rapport? But I don't know. I've never had an issue. I mean, to this day, I've been a therapist for 3 years this week.
Hey, wow.
Wow. Yay! Therapist
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been 3 years. Oh my goodness. In the 3 years that I've been working, and I've had hundreds of clients. I could only think of maybe 1 or 2 clients I had difficulty building rapport with. A lot of clients I have rapport about after that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like the adult that's like, hey man, like you don't have to teach me your virtual world. I know your virtual world and I'm going to kick your ass in it. And a lot of times they're like, what? You're going to play with me? I'm like, yeah, let's play. Like, they're like, right now? I'm like, yeah, let's play. So I think being that different type of adult helps a lot too.
Yeah.
Plus adults can game with me too. I mean, it's a party in my session. So.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have serious moments too, but I think that really does help. Having more kind of what we touched on last time, making therapy less boring really does help build the rapport.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that, you know, it might take 4 sessions for your therapist to really get to know you a little bit. But from a client perspective, like the therapist that I didn't like before, and I knew right away that she wasn't the one for me. And it was just, her style wasn't great, but I still gave her 5 sessions. That's my like go-to is like, can you click in 5 sessions? That's, but that's a personal thing. You might get 1 session in and be like, oh, hell no. You know, maybe you're atheist 100%. And your therapist is really super duper over the top religious and has crosses all over her wall and it makes you uncomfortable. Like that's a legitimate reason.
I have been there.
Yeah, right. 100%. Like that's a legitimate reason not to continue with someone. And so I think probably 4 sessions to really start to open things up is a really good way to look at it. But I think you're going to know pretty quick off the bat whether or not that person is going to be helpful to you or not.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I would say give it a month, give it 4 sessions, see how you vibe. But to start seeing like change, you want to give it about 90 days, about 3 months or so. Yeah. But yeah, if you don't feel comfortable by the 4th session, I would say maybe start looking internally like, is there something with me in terms of vulnerability that's making me hesitant? Or is this straight up like the therapist not vibing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And still have that open, honest conversation with them for sure. I think that's really important in any situation as well. So is there a career moment or highlight that you are most proud of in your past 3 years?
Yes, actually. It goes back to that selectively mute kiddo. The same one who sneezed in my sand tray. So gross, so disgusting. But he was one of my school-based kiddos, making sure I don't, for confidentiality, disclose too much. But he was a little one, like elementary age. And for about 2 years, he didn't say a single word at school, not a single word. And to his teachers, to principals, and it started getting in the way of like assessment. So I really had to step in and be like, okay, how do we help this kiddo? And basically, we had switched to telehealth. This was at the last maybe 3 months or so of school. In person, we were doing weekly sessions, and I was trying to do everything, like blowing bubbles, and which got him giggling, which was great. I was like, oh yes, he's making sounds in front of me. His favorite chips or his favorite food were chips. I would give him chips just to see if he was comfortable opening his mouth around me. And it kind of progressed, but very, very, very slowly. And then it came time for telehealth, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I don't have chips. I can't just like throw chips at the computer, which would be nice. Like, y'all, Google, like whoever's making these things, like Elon Musk, like, let's talk because we need to have this by now. It's 2021. Let's be real.
Let's Willy Wonka this shit. Like, they thought of that a long time ago. Come on, where is it?
Right? Or the teleportation devices. Like, come on, we need to have this by now.
Yes.
But all jokes aside, with this kiddo, his thing was Roblox. And at that point, I had heard quite a lot about Roblox. I was the therapist that had so many board games in my room. And this bucket, my trash bucket now, but it was a little bucket from Target that I used to fill with dollar store things that the kiddos could, and adults could pick out each week. So like I was like the fun, hands-on therapist. We would make things that they could take home and whatnot. So when I switched to telehealth, it was jarring. So jarring. And at that point, I already knew about Roblox because all the kids were talking about it. But it was more so like, you need to play Roblox, Miss Jessica. And I was like, I am not going to play Roblox. Or you need to go on TikTok, Miss Jessica. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like that's for you guys. Joke's on me. I'm all up on TikTok now and Roblox. Like I find myself playing Roblox when my kids aren't online. Like this stuff is fun, man. And I started playing with him and I invited him to teach me his world. Like honestly, that's how I learned how to play Roblox, from a 6-year-old selectively mute kid.
Yeah.
You know, and he taught me his world within 3 months. 3 months. This kid went from no words at all in 2 years, 200 words a session, even yelling them at me sometimes. All because I entered his virtual world. And that's how I kind of discovered my niche and rolled with it and ran with it. So kind of something I'm proud of as well is being able to recognize a niche and being able to recognize an innate skill that I already had, but then taking it a step further beyond just developing rapport and making clients feel comfortable, I'm using that as the intervention. And it's super cool to see all these things that come up just by gaming. Right. Honestly, but that I'm proud of. Like that kid went from literally no words in 2 years to just blah. And it was great. It was fantastic. And then he started making friends at school, and he was like all playing by himself, and like he had like 5 friends by our last week together, and it was so neat to see.
That's really great. Yeah. So, what's your favorite way to spend a day off when you're not working?
I used to work out, but I can't really do that right now. Call of Duty. Oh, yes. I'm dealing with so much chaos with my insurance. And basically, the guy who hit me didn't have a license, didn't have insurance, was drunk. All of the fun stuff. And it wasn't a bad accident. Like, I was fully parked when he hit me, but I was twisted to see what he was doing when he reversed into my car. So my back is jacked up. So before I would sit at my computer and I would make cool like posts for social media, because that's fun for me. I like designing different things on Canva, or I would play Roblox on my computer, or I would sit and play Animal Crossing, but I can't really sit that long without pain. So like right now I'm chilling because I'm definitely not sitting up straight. I know my mom's like posture, and I hear her in the back of my head. But I've been playing Call of Duty because I've been so frustrated lately with the insurance and gaslighting and all that fun stuff, being treated like a medical guinea pig with all these medications that are doing absolutely nothing. And I take my rage out on Call of Duty, and it's fantastic. Before the accident, I'd play Call of Duty here and there with my significant other, and I was more into like the story mode playing. I'm definitely one of those people who is a resource hoarder, and I don't really like getting into the battle that much. Like for me, I'm like, yes, let's get all the money. And when I play like tabletops or when I do LARPs, I'm a healer. Like I stay in the back and I'm like, y'all do the dumb. I'll be over here when you screw up and I'll fix you, but I'm out. Like, no, I'm not staying around. But this past week, it's interesting seeing how my gaming style is becoming self-care, because now I'm like, oh, die. My boyfriend finds it hilarious. And my dogs wonder what's going on with me, but it's really cathartic to just go in guns a-blazing, quite literally, into the game and just maul everyone. I mean, I'm 5'2". Like in real life, I would never run into a battle. I'm tiny. I would get rolled over by a tank. But being able to kind of play differently has been therapeutic for me. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's great. I'm the same way. You said resource hoarder, and I'm like, oh, that's me right here. Like that's me. Yeah, like I'm a healer. I'm a resource hoarder. All of those things. Like I want to go do all the skill stuff. Can I just go? Do I have to do the fighting? Okay, I'll do the fighting.
I want to do the fighting. Like I'm the person who will run away screaming if you're shooting at me.
Yes.
Like I'm not gonna shoot back. I'm gonna hide. Like I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, everyone listening right now is like, God, that's so mama. Completely. Absolutely. So we already yeah. So Bite Mark said
instead. That's
me.
100% me.
I'm a farmer. Every game that we play, I'm like, can I plant things? I'm just gonna plant some tomatoes, okay? Can I plant some flowers? I'm gonna plant some flowers.
100%. On Red Dead, I'm petting the puppies. 100%.
Yes!
Like, y'all can fight. I'm just gonna pet the puppies over here. Like, don't mind me. Like,
yeah,
for real.
Some flashbacks to every game I've ever played with her. It's true. That's completely me. Absolutely me. So we already covered the serial killer question last time. So do you have a favorite book or genre of books?
Honestly, grad school killed my drive for reading.
Oh, no.
I know, right? I used to read all the time, but now I find myself reading more for work. And I'm just like, I don't want to read more. But I try to read ahead of my clients so I can like highlight it. And then when they do it for homework, I can like talk about the important stuff. But so I have a couple books that I'm actively reading right now, which are, I'm gonna pull them out. They're fun. I have, what are the ones I have? They fell in the back, but I have The High Conflict Couple, which is a DBT workbook for working with couples. Fantastic. If you are with someone who has like borderline personality disorder, or you're just in a really high conflict relationship. But I also have Facing Codependence, which is really great because I didn't realize there you go. I didn't realize I'm codependent until I started exploring family dysfunction. Because for me, I thought codependency was like, oh, you're clingy in a relationship. I'm the opposite. If my gaming style is any indication, I don't like people. So, I'm not clingy. Like I went based off of society's definition of codependent, but then it's like, also, you don't know how to feel. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. It's like, well, you also strive on accomplishments rather than like compliments and whatnot. And I'm just like, okay, fine. You didn't have to attack me like that with that relatable content, but all right, I guess I am codependent. So it's just really nice being able to read that. But personally, I love Ellen Hopkins and the Crank series, and they're really cool because it's not like your typical like story. It's in almost like button poem format. So it's a really easy read, but damn, do they go deep. Like one explores meth use, one explores dissociative identity disorder, one explores suicide, one explores family trauma and incest. Like they get deep, but they're really interesting reads. They're like really thick reads, but some of the books are actually connected to each other. So you're able to progress, and I love that. I've read her books since high school.
Wow.
Yeah. I need to get back into reading her books. They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Well, I popped links from on Goodreads for all of those. If anybody's interested in any of those, they're on there. They're on there for you. So is there a difference between the topic tonight, self-care, self-love, and burnout? So is there a difference between self-care and self-love? Are they used interchangeably, or where's the line between the two?
Yes and no. So great question, because self-love is more so of a mindset. It's a mindset about loving yourself and having that inner peace, and that no matter what your self-perceived inadequacies are, you are the best that you can ever be, and you appreciate you. So it's kind of being awareness of your limitation, not measuring yourself up by the standards of the world, but on how much better you did each time. So it's not settling for a life you will not be happy living. But self-care is taking that self-love and applying it. So self-love is kind of from the inside out, and then self-care is from the outside in. So it's that action based on that love for yourself. And it's caring for yourself unapologetically. So they often are used interchangeably, but I think you can't have one without the other. Because by self-caring, you're increasing that self-love, but you need to self-love to have that self-care. So one's more of a mindset, one's more of a do.
Yeah. So you said you don't think you can really have one without the other, and still you can't have one without the other and still live kind of a healthy lifestyle and be fulfilled?
I would argue no, because you need to have that self-love in order to have that self-care. Otherwise, you're just doing yoga and stressing the fuck out the entire time. But self-love would be believing in your dreams and taking compliments from people and actually acknowledging them, because you are worth being noticed. So you can self-care, but where's that self-love component coming from? Like, where is that acknowledgement that you deserve self-care? Right. So it's kind of, you have to have that mindset of self-love in order to self-care.
Yeah.
You can self-care, but it wouldn't really be self-care because you don't have that love towards yourself.
Right.
I know, kind of redundant, but yeah.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because if I'm reading for self-care, so I've been doing a lot of self-care gardening this week, because that's what my therapist and I talked about most recently. And she was like, I feel like you just need to put your feet.
My dogs are playing with each other.
You're fine. I feel like you just need to put your feet in the grass and water your plants and pay attention to what your plants are doing, and spend that time without your kids around you, without music playing, without anything. And it's like, I could do that. I could go outside and water the plants. But if I just go outside and water the plants without actually paying attention to what it is, and telling myself, like, you are doing a good thing, you are doing something that is worth taking the time to do, you're taking this time for yourself, you are worth taking this time for yourself. Like, I could literally just go do the task
100%
without any
100%.
self-love. And is that self-care because I'm taking the time to go do something that I enjoy? So maybe it is still self-care, but it's not. There is that component of self-love that like completes it, right? So,
and if you don't self-care, you're not self-loving. So it's kind of
right. Yeah,
kind of a catch-22 with both of those.
Yeah, and I think also a big part of self-love for me that I've had to work on personally is self-talk. Like that's a big 100%. One, because if you have negative self-talk, which I do a lot of the time, it's just something that I personally struggle with. It's hard to then give yourself that permission to do the self-care thing. So I think you're right. I think it would be really hard to have one without the other.
100%. And touching on the self-talk, I actually have an intervention that I have my clients do for homework. And I see self-talk as the hardest thing ever. Like, y'all are going to love me for this. What I want you to do over the next week, this is not as a therapist working, no, but my free tip of advice or my free special technique that I love is take a Post-it. And what I want you to do on this Post-it is write with a Sharpie, real big where you can see it, anytime you have negative self-talk.
Oh.
You're going to write, Luna! She's like, play with me! But she's big on playing lately, especially since I haven't really been feeling good. She's trying to bring more energy.
Yeah, she feels it. Yeah.
If I could harness that dog's energy just a little bit. But with this activity, you're going to take a Post-it. So I like bright colored Post-its so I can see it easily. If you don't have Post-its, you can also take like an expo marker to a mirror. I had an expo marker on my mirror for several months, comes right off with Windex.
Yep.
Like no problem at all. But what you want to do, the instant the negative self-talk comes into your brain, you're going to immediately reframe. Now, sometimes if we're stuck in that negative self-talk cycle, it's hard for our brain to flip it with a positive. Like, oh, like I'm such a fat piece of shit versus I have the body of a goddess, right? Sometimes our brain can't make that shift. So what I challenge with is if you can't make that shift, I want you to identify a positive quality about yourself. So maybe, yeah, I am lazy. I am so beyond lazy, it's not even funny. That is something I will openly admit. But I'm also so intelligent. And that's something being lazy will not take away. So even writing something like that, and you're going to put it somewhere where you can see, because neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you're constantly, when you're in that moment of negative self-talk, if you're reframing immediately, your brain starts building that habit. And yeah, I'm lazy, but it makes me efficient. I am right there with you 100%. But that helps the brain kind of reframe, and then it becomes a habit. And then you notice you don't need as many Post-its. It works every single time I have my clients do.
I love it. And I always have Post-its because I keep them on my desk for the bad Post-it drawing redemption. So I've always got them right here.
So many Post-its.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Smiles, if you, oh no, I thought you were going to say write down the negative thoughts so you see how mean you are to yourself. No.
Honestly, though, that does kind of work because then you're seeing how often you truly do engage in negative self-talk. But you don't want to hone in on like, wow, I'm such a dick to myself.
I'm just thinking of like, I'm going to put this Post-it. I'm an asshole. I'm lazy. I'm fat.
I would be crying all the time. I also have, let's see if I can get it. I have this little box that I made. Oh, there you go. Little happy box. I had this in person when I worked with the kiddos, and they would even contribute it themselves. And whenever they had a bad day, they would pull from the happy box. Let's see what the happy box has for today. And this is really just a cigar box that I Mod Podged with tissue paper.
Perfect.
Like,
perfect.
But so the happy box, we got today. Lena's just joining in. It's okay. You don't have to live up to everyone's standards. What matters is that you live up to yours.
I love that.
So this is my little happy box. I also have you have to nourish to flourish. And I had a separate one when I was in person, and the kiddos would contribute to it and leave special little happy notes for each other. And it was so fun. Luna, stop.
That's really sweet. No, I love that exercise because then you wind up not only working on that reframing and the rewiring, right, of your thinking, but also you're like leaving yourself with a Post-it note, a little reminder that, oh, I am beautiful. Oh, I am efficient. You know, like, oh, there's all these things that I am intelligent. All these things that you can put on there. And then not only are you trying to rewire that, but then you have a visual reminder of like, these are the things that I am, and then I am acknowledging that I am, and you see it, and it just reminds you of it. So I think that's fantastic.
100%.
That's really good.
Thank you.
So has the pandemic served to increase or decrease the focus on self-love and self-care, or and for like the general population, or has it generally stayed the same? And I guess you could break that down into for general population, and then also for therapists and or people who are in therapy.
I would say for clients, yes. For therapists, kind of. I would say not enough therapists are aware of their self-care.
Hmm.
So in the sense that I was one of them, I was working from home and I was overworking myself like crazy because I thought, oh, I'll just like go lay down in bed, but I was still working. And even though we're physically comfortable, our brain's still on overdrive. And that can definitely lead to burnout if you're not giving yourself that mental break too. And I had to get blue light glasses because my eyes were killing me. And now I have to switch between a beanbag and a chair because my back's killing me. So it's really important for therapists to remember that yes, we're not in an office. Yes, we're a lot more comfortable, but we still need to eat. We still need to drink water. We still need a self-care, even though our workload's a little bit easier, so to speak. But for the general population, I can speak for my clients, I can speak for my friends, my loved ones, they're self-caring a lot more because they have a lot more time. We're not commuting to the office back and forth. So I have more time to like put on my makeup. I have more time to dress comfortably. I have more time to play video games, more time with my pets, things like that. I have more time in my day. And I think for those working at home, it's a lot better in terms of self-love and self-care to be surrounded by their significant other than not have to do that commute. But I think it also, when we're stuck at home, we get so bored that we naturally self-care to kind of self-stimulate. And that becomes a habit. So then the focus is more. And a lot of people also, they're like, man, I'm stuck in these four walls. I'm alone with my thoughts. And that causes the shift to self-love and self-care too, naturally. It's kind of neat to see. I mean, I wanted to see more clients have that shift, but I really didn't want the pandemic to make us get here.
Yeah.
Not
right.
fun.
Yeah, it could end at any time. Please. Like, I'm begging you. Make it stop.
I miss concerts, man. I haven't been at concerts since the end of 2019, and I'm really sad about it. I don't like it.
Well, I actually just this past weekend, there was a meetup group, and they were like, you know what? We're going to do some board games at the mall. Everyone is required to wear a mask unless you are taking a drink. We're not going to be eating at the table, so you're going to have to wear a mask. I went, and there were like 6 of us, and we played some board games for a few hours, and it was beautiful. And I didn't realize like just how much I really missed that. Because I talk to my community all the time. I game with people online. I have my kids, you know, I talk to people at work. Like I've got video calls and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but a physical, like in-person meetup was just incredible. It was fantastic.
It's
and everyone
so different.
Yeah, everyone was really respectful and wore their masks, and it was great. It was fantastic. I'm looking forward to a time where the masks are no longer required. But
100%. I went to a brewery with family this past weekend, and it was just nice having a sense of normality.
yeah,
Like we're all vaccinated,
right.
we were able to take our masks off for conversation and everything, but it felt nice to be able to go out. And then I went to like an outdoor swap meet, and it was nice to just walk around and see something other than the four walls of my house.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So what does self-love and self-care look like for those in a relationship? And I mean like a couple or parents or kids, parents with their kids with their siblings, people who are more career-minded and with their coworkers. What does it look like when you're in a relationship? How do you make sure that you're getting that self-love and self-care to fulfill your needs?
100%. It looks like boundaries. Honestly, and I know a lot of people hate that word, but it really does. Like for me, I make sure that I am taking care of my own happiness. And I think it boils down to that with parents, with those in a relationship, with those with kids. It's important that others are not responsible for your happiness. Like I hear all the time people telling their kids like, oh, you made me so sad, or what you did made me sad. No, your kids aren't responsible for your emotions. You are at the end of the day. Same with your kids. You are not responsible for making your kids happy. You need to teach your children how to self-soothe, how to emotionally regulate, right? So same within a relationship. For me as a therapist, it's really, really hard not to feel that guilt if my significant other is having his own mental health problems of, oh my God, I need to fix him. I'm a therapist and my significant other's struggling what does that mean for me as a therapist? But my self-love and my self-care is stepping back and reminding myself, hey, I'm a therapist and his girlfriend. That's why I can't fix him. Not that he needs to be fixed. But same with kiddos. I used to live with 2 little kiddos, and it was very, very important that when I came home, my stressors didn't become their stressors. And having those boundaries as well, but also teaching them through mirroring what it looks like to engage in self-care. So we'd have self-care weekends. We would do our hair. Yeah, I'm a therapist, but I'm not his therapist. He has his own therapist.
Yep.
And it's hilarious because all of her modalities are identical to mine. So it's usually like he's talking to me. It's funny. And we say the exact same things, like verbatim. So it's hilarious. But also, it really is important to step back and not have them take on your emotions.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important, like if you're on your way home from work, to self-care, whatever you need in that moment. If it's a cry, if it's a scream in the car going, don't go 90 on the freeway, but if you're screaming in the car with your windows up and metal blasting, get that anger out, because your kid doesn't deserve that. They really don't. And I mean, that's what I would say. Self-love and self-care is also knowing your limits. Like for me, when I'm in pain or when I'm hormonal and in pain and not feeling well, my spoons were very low this past week. So it was important for me to be able to communicate to my significant other. Like certain TV shows, I legit could not watch because it required too much thinking for me. It was way too much stimulation. I was just overwhelmed after really long days. So it's also being able to communicate, and self-care is letting others know when you're not okay, but it's also creating those boundaries for yourself. And I would say the best thing to do as a parent, as a significant other, as a career-minded individual. I know she has a lot to say.
She does. She has opinions.
So much to say. She really does, though. This dog, like, she loves Call of Duty. She loves violence. And I have concerns. And now she's growling. So, like, she was, yes,
she knows you're talking about her.
But, right, I think it's really important that we model. So, like, I'll play video games with my nieces and nephews. Like, my niece came over the day before a huge soccer tournament, and we did a self-care ritual. I practiced witchcraft. She does as well. So we did a self-care bath where she washed any negativities off. We had candles. I had a silk robe for her. We had a movie marathon afterwards. So it's basically doing things in a relaxed mindset. And that's the key. Because you could do yoga. You could do goat yoga all you want. But if you're not thinking
pictures of goat yoga.
I love goat yoga. But if you're not doing it in a relaxed mind, you're literally just doing bendy shit. Yeah. You're not doing self-care.
Right.
At all. Which reminds me of that Grinch. I don't know if you've seen the Grinch doing yoga. And he's just like, and everyone's just looking at me like, I have some inner demons.
But now I have to look it up for sure.
It's great. It's great.
That's wonderful. So how can someone deal with feelings of guilt that can come with prioritizing self-love and self-care?
Yeah, I mean, every therapist loves using the airplane analogy with the mask that dropped down, but it's so true. You have to put on your mask first before you can help others. But also, how can you help emotionally regulate your kid if you're not in a space of emotional regulation yourself?
Yeah.
And you can't drink from a glass that's empty. So it's important to make sure that you're at 100%, because if you don't start there, you're not going to be at 100%.
Right. Yeah.
So, and self-care is not selfish. It's not about a me mentality. And I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have, that engaging in self-help, self-care, self-love is at a detriment of other people. It's saying, you know what, I matter first, I matter most, but it's actually not. It couldn't be more different. Self-love and self-care is showing people, hey, you know what, I love you so much that I'm going to care for myself, that I'm going to be the best me that I can be. And it's not self-centered. It's not about fighting against the world to express ourselves or to get what we want. Self-love and self-care are about loving ourselves for who we are and then taking the time to care for ourselves. So it's simply about acting from a place of kindness towards yourself and taking the time to remind ourselves of that power and of that kindness, especially in a world that's full of hate, full of violence, full of anger, because both of these things are essential to live a happy and healthy life. And when you practice these things, all sorts of changes can occur. You start realizing that you don't need other people to love you because you love yourself enough, right? I mean, we can benefit from having other people in our lives, but it's also not comparing yourself to other people. We get stuck in that cycle so much. And the biggest thing, especially during the pandemic, is knowing your limits and being mindful of it and loving yourself enough to respect it and notice when you're going close to those limits.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, it can be hard, especially as a parent. And I go back to that because, you know, in a relationship, I think it's easier to set boundaries with a significant other than it is sometimes with your kids. And so trying to set that boundary with your kids to say, no, mommy doesn't want you to help her water the garden right now. You can help me later when I water the back. This is my time right now. Like, I'm going to water the backyard. Please don't come up here while I'm watering the front yard. Like, this is my time. This is my time for self-care and self-love. And it's hard because it's like, you don't want to say no to your kid. But at the same time, if you're wanting to spend quality time with your kid watering the garden, but you also need that self-care time, like, how good of a quality time are you going to have if you're resenting your child for interrupting your self-care, self-love
100%.
time? And so if you can separate the two and say, we're going to do a similar thing, but we're going to do it together, but I'm going to do this thing on my own. I think that's a hard thing to do. And it's a really delicate balance to try to strike, but it's important too.
It really is. And one thing I love using is saying, you know, Auntie's having, like, for me, I don't have kids of my own, but Auntie's having some really big emotions today. And you know what helps me? Gardening. So right now I'm gardening, and to help these big emotions, I need a little bit of quietness.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not a bother. I love you dearly. But right now, I'm going to be quiet over here to help with my big emotion. What you can do is see how you feel yanking out the weeds with your bare hand. So tying it to their emotions as well. You know, gardening feels great. Like, I want you to sit here and notice the sun on your skin, or notice 5 things you can see, 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can taste. So you're giving them a self-care task of their own, but also giving yourself that peace of mind of, hey, I need some peace and quiet right now.
Right.
And you're modeling, you're showing them, hey, it's okay to have big emotions. My big emotions are not your responsibility. But if you want to join me in feeling better, let's do this together. So same with like mindful breathing, or I like mindful breathing with bubbles. Be like, you know, mommy breathes with bubbles sometimes if I'm having a bad day. Do you want to try it together? See how you feel. So you're showing them and you're inviting them to your world as well, but you're creating that distance from your emotions so that they're not feeling responsible for it. Because I can tell you, I grew up with that feeling and it was not fun. And it's really hard to detach myself from the emotions of others now, especially as an adult, because I grew up in a family where she clearly has a lot to say about this. We actually got her from the pound. So Luna, come here. Oh, she's in her little crate, but her crate's like right in front of my desk. But I think it's really important to show that, you know what, it's okay to have a moment at the end of the day. And I think that's what a lot of parents and significant others fail to recognize, that a lot of times it's our loved ones trying to help us feel better. And sometimes they don't realize that we need just some peace and quiet for once in our lives and to be left alone for 5 minutes. That's all we want. And you want to make it clear, like, look, like, it's not you, love. I love you. I need some time.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not only the peace and quiet, right? It's not that I don't want to spend time with my kids, because I absolutely do. I love my children. But it's the if I'm going to be able to think through things by myself, if I'm going to be able to dedicate that time to self-love and self-care for myself, I want to make sure that I'm doing that on my own without trying to kind of tag them along, right? So I like giving them their own little bit. That's a really good tip. Hey, Frank
I
said
would say
interesting
give them
perspectives.
I saw that interesting
Yeah.
perspective. Spending time with my daughter comforts me, so it's a bit odd to hear this. I'm in the same boat. For me, I constantly remind parents that it's important to connect to your inner child.
Yeah.
And it can be very cathartic when it comes to self-care as well. Because a lot of times, the moments we need self-care are when we're so removed from what it's like to be a child. And oftentimes, when we're so removed, we get annoyed when kids are being kids, when kids are running, making a mess, things like that. And everyone does have their own coping mechanisms. There's not one right or wrong way. But for me, when I self-care and I know little ones are around, right? And I know that they're bored out of their minds. They're probably looking to me for some entertainment, or they just want to spend some time with me. And there's nothing wrong with that. So what I do is I take those as opportunities to reconnect to my inner child. So I bought a whole ass Play-Doh set to play with my nieces and nephews. I'll play Fortnite with them. I'll play Roblox. We'll sit down and color with chalk outside, or just put on some Coco Melon. There you go. But it's reconnecting to that inner child, and simply sometimes just playing with our kids can be the most fun that you'll have in years. These kids have very active imaginations, and it can be very cathartic to pop some bubble wrap,
right.
to eat with your fingers, right? So I encourage parents and significant others to invite your loved ones into your self-care when it's appropriate. I mean, we all need our alone time sometimes, but in those moments you're not able to, and your kid's glued to your hip, involve them. Connect with them, make some slime with them, get messy, get silly, because sometimes that can be cathartic in itself too. And it helps them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you practice all the self-care and all the self-love in the world, you can still face burnout at some time in your life. So can you define burnout and kind of describe the physical, emotional, behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout for us?
Great question. So a lot of times it goes hand in hand with anxiety. I mean, there's different signs of stress. You have your cognitive symptoms, which are like some of these can overlap with actual mental health diagnoses too. So it can be really hard to identify. Like for me, I have ADHD. I also have anxiety and depression. So on any given day, because mine's definitely chemical based, some people are environmental, some people are chemical, some people are genetic. For me, it's all of the above, and I'm medicated as well. But for me, when I have an inability to concentrate above and beyond my normal ADHD, or seeing only the negative, when I get stuck down that rabbit hole, but then again, that can also be depression. But it's also anxious erasing thoughts, trouble learning new information, constant worrying, nightmares, guilt, poor judgment, forgetfulness, disorganization. These are just some cognitive symptoms, but you also have emotional symptoms. You have depression, low self-esteem, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you're losing control, crying all the time, having a really hard time emotionally regulating, suicidal thoughts. Also, if you are having suicidal thoughts, it's okay to reach out, which we'll touch at the end of this, but it's okay to talk about it. But also moodiness, apathy, irritability, agitation, feeling like your spoons are too low. You have some physical symptoms like nervousness, weakness, twitching. For me, if I'm stressed, my left eye, I had to think about it for a second, but my left eye will start twitching like crazy, or I will have tense muscles. Like anyone watching this, you're probably clenching your jaw. Unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, stop holding in your breath, drink some water, you dehydrated noodle. But also, there's a lot of physiological.
All right.
There's this is how I am in therapy.
I love it.
But also, getting sick all the time, because if you're stressed, your cortisol levels are heightened. You're going to get sick a lot more. So basically, anytime your sympathetic nervous system is activated and you get headaches, insomnia, hair loss, clenched jaw, dry mouth. You also have behavioral changes in appetite, sleeping too much, too little. I sound like a drug commercial, I swear. Problems communicating, defensiveness, nervous habits, low interest in appearance, your libido's out the window. There's so many different things that can happen. It really is varied by the individual. But so for me, how do I know that I'm having burnout? For me, I noticed that I'm burnt out, and it's happened quite a few times. It happens a lot for therapists, and I think it's important for therapists to know what burns them out. I love how you included the text lifeline of 741-741. That's one of my favorites to use. It's amazing. But yeah, being always sick and insomniac, having your hair fall out, that's definitely signs of stress and signs that you need to self-care. And what I'll be doing is I can also send MommaFoxFire, or I can have it up on my website of a self-care check-in, or I can guide all of y'all through that right now too. But it's really important to identify the different areas of self-care that you're missing out on and hone in on that as well. But for me, I noticed if I'm not, I know it's going to sound gross, but if I become a cochina, so if I'm not brushing my teeth, if I'm not showering, if I'm not taking care of my hygiene, because I'm like, no one cares anyways. But those are things that I engage on a regular basis to feel good. I love doing my makeup. I love having my hair done all cute. But my hair is super curly and frizzy and will like knot up like crazy if I don't brush it out. So if I notice that, oh my God, I haven't brushed my hair in 5 days, or I haven't taken a shower in 3 days and I'm starting to attract flies, that's usually a sign that I'm starting to get burnt out. Or if the little things are bugging me, then I notice that my stress level, my spoons are depleted, and I have no emotional capacity for anything else. Oftentimes I'll get irritability. I'm like a walking Snickers commercial. I get hangry. I get so moody. But it's also if I feel like I don't have enough time in the day, where I'm like, oh my God, I don't have enough time to do this. I start feeling really overwhelmed. Then I need to step back and be like, okay, I have my hands in too many places. I need to step back and I need to self-care. But those are my telltale signs. They're different for everybody. So I would say watch your signs. If you're starting to feel sick all the time, if you're starting to feel like the major things, take a look at what you're missing. For me, my biggest thing is water. I never hydrate, and I get on my clients all the time to hydrate. I constantly forget to hydrate. I am so dehydrated right now that I think about it. But the small things, like making sure we're taking care of that too.
Yeah. So you mentioned a self-care check-in. If you want to send me a link to that, or if you want to walk us through one right now, if there's time for it. Yes! I don't know how long it is.
It's really short. What I would want everyone to do, if you have a piece of paper and a pen, I want you to grab that and draw a gingerbread person.
Can it be a Post-it note?
On your paper. It could be a Post-it note.
I don't have a big piece of paper, but I gotta post it for sure. Okay, a gingerbread person. Got it.
Gingerbread person. And then if you have some coloring stuff, sometimes coloring or like highlighters work, the same pen works. Right now, it doesn't matter what color you color each area. We're just going to bring our attention to these different areas because this might be the first time you've thought about this area in a while. So even if you've done it or haven't done these different things that I'm going to bring up, I still want you to color in and think about it because we're trying to get into the habit of thinking about it. So I'm going to ask you a question. Say a statement and tell you an area to color. So you want to wait until I say go ahead and color in that area before you start coloring because you want to take some time to think about it. So the first one, how have you been practicing self-care today? If you have done something to care for yourself today, mentally, physically, emotionally. So mentally, have you gone to therapy? Physically, have you drank water? Have you eaten? Have you hydrated? Maybe taken a shower? Emotionally, have you talked about your feelings? Have you self-cared? You're going to color in half of the head of your figure.
Okay.
All right. And let me know when you're done.
I got mine.
Perfect. So what do you need right now? Do you need some extra sleep? Do you need something to drink, something to eat? Color in the hands of your figure. Or make hands and then color them in if your figure doesn't have hands.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you drew your gingerbread person, right?
There you go. All right. How is your body feeling? Are you hot, cold, tired, happy, calm? Color in the legs of your figure, including the little feet. If your figure has feet, of course. And then if not, maybe you want to draw some legs and feet for your figure.
Just tap my mic. Of course I did. hopefully my filter tapped it or took it out, but probably not. That dang filter is so silly.
All right. After this, I'm going to drink like a whole gallon of water, I swear.
No.
So I'm going through this. I'm like, do I need to hydrate? Yes.
Yes.
Do I need to eat? Absolutely. Do I need sleep? Oh, dear God, yeah. So much sleep. So much sleep. All right. What boundaries do you need to enforce? Is there conflict with a friend that needs a boundary? Is someone overstepping, impending on your self-love? Color in the arms of your figure.
I should have kept all the colors I was using out so I wouldn't use them again, but I didn't. That's okay.
Is there anything upsetting or bothering you? Is there something making you upset in this present moment? If so, go ahead, color it out. Let it go just for this moment until you're ready to address it. If not, good for you. Awesome. Let's color anyways. Let's have some fun coloring. We're going to color in the torso of your figure. Have you taken care of your basic needs today? Have you showered, eaten, hydrated, gotten enough sleep? Color in the neck of your figure, or around the head if your figure has no neck.
Gonna have a neck now.
There you go. And then last, but certainly not least, how is your self-talk? Have you been talking down on yourself today, or have you been your own personal cheerleader? Have your thoughts been positive or negative? And if it's negative, you're going to use that post-it activity. But color in the other half of the head of your figure.
Yours has no neck.
And that's okay. That's okay. What I'll be doing later this week, if you guys want to take a look at my website, I will be posting the self-care check-in on probably Friday, basically whenever my back is not killing me. So I'm going to put this on my schedule as well. I will have it uploaded into my blog for anyone that wants to do the self-care check-in. I will also include a copy of the self-care buddy as well. So this is one of my favorite things to do because out of any of the areas that we just went over, I want you to pause or over the next week, think about any of the areas that you might have been neglecting. I want you to focus on those areas in particular. Like for me, I've been great with boundaries and I've been great in letting things go that's upsetting or bothering me, especially with Call of Duty. So I wouldn't necessarily be focusing on that, but I am not hydrating at all. So the next week, I'm not going to be like, okay, I need to watch all my boundaries and any toxic mofo comes in my way, they're gone. No, I need to drink some water. Let's be real. I need to drink some water and I need to take a nap because I'm exhausted. So it's really important to be mindful of the areas that we really do need to focus on for self-care. And these are all the major areas for self-care. So that's another way to know, like, okay, do I need to self-care? Do I need to do this self-care check-in? And if you're noticing any of the signs, the symptoms that we went over before, like insomnia, being tired, headache, getting sick all the time, things like that, maybe do a self-care check-in to help hone it in on, okay, what area am I neglecting? Right.
Yeah, I love that. So here's mine. Oh, maybe there you go. I'll post it in the Discord too. But there you go. Just in case anyone was feeling bad about their artistic skills, this should make you feel better.
I love it. Yes. Yes.
They're called bad post-it drawings for a reason. I love them.
Yes, there is no right or wrong way to draw in my world because
Yes.
Picasso made money too. So.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is the difference between stress and burnout?
Stress, we all have stress. It's kind of like, oh, something bad happened, but I can get over it, you know? But I think burnout is when we let the stress accumulate over and over and over again, and we're not doing anything to make it go down.
Yeah.
Picasso was a grade A asshole. I mean, yeah. But
yeah.
he can make money, so can, or if his paintings are works of art, you know what I mean? There you go. So,
yes.
It doesn't even have a face. It's Slender Man. Okay, Slender Man has emotions too.
You can put a face on it now. There's nothing stopping you.
There you go. Hey, he self-cares with long walks through the forest.
Yeah.
Great reminder.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're experiencing a lot of stress, maybe that can lead to burnout. But stress is a normal and natural thing that I think that we all experience. That if you are doing all these things for self-care and self-love, right, that can help you prevent that burnout a little bit. But to me, like when I'm stressed at work, that's a normal state for work if I'm on a deadline, because it's a deadline, it's pressure, and that's good for me because it helps me perform personally. That's why I love my job. If I am suddenly being like, I'm so stressed, I'm not going to deal with any of this shit today. Like that for me, that change, whenever you reach that change point 100%. Is where you're like, oh, this is about to be real bad, y'all.
If you hit the fuck this shit mode, you're already in burnout. You're not approaching burnout. You're like balls deep in burnout.
Yep. Yeah.
100%.
So, I mean, is there usually a warning before you arrive at burnout, or is it pretty sudden for most people?
I would say there's a warning because, I mean, there are big things. Like for me, my accident, that could easily push me into burnout 100% because I'm constantly in pain. But it's also like, am I doing anything to feel better? Like I'm icing my back. Right after this, I'm going to lay on my stomach. I am going to ice my back. I'm going to take my medication and I'm going to go to Mimi's land all night. But so, I mean, you can have sudden burnout if something, but then again, at that point, it's probably a trauma, not really burnout. Burnout is when it's chronic state of stress constantly. And it's really important to be aware of what we're doing to handle stress. At the end of the day, are you taking your job home with you or are you leaving it at work? Right. And maybe sometimes having like a ritual to do in your car. Like for me, back when I was smoking cigarettes, I'd smoke like a cigarette on the car ride home, or I would blast heavy metal, or I would belt out Phantom of the Opera, right, all the way home, depending on my day. If it was a great session, maybe I'm not listening to like heavy death metal, or maybe I am, depending on my mood. But having that kind of ritual to help you detach and kind of leave it at work is so key. So key.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, Alpha, I'm sorry to hear you're in a state of burnout with a portion of your job. I wish I knew magic words to help you, but I don't, unfortunately. Self-care, for sure. Talk to your mental health provider. Yep. So they can help you figure out what to do. And talk to your boss. Like I will say as a boss, I want to know if one of my employees is approaching burnout or is burned out, because I don't want to have some sort of performance conversation about why are they underperforming, when what the real conversation is how can we best support you right now and get you back on your feet and get you back to your normal mode of operation. And so I would encourage you to talk to your boss in addition to talking to your mental health care provider, because both are very important, but have that conversation with your boss too.
100%. 100%.
So does burnout usually lead to the diagnosis of a specific mental illness? You've already mentioned depression, or are there some mental illnesses that put a person more at risk for burnout?
I mean, when you do have stress, your amygdala is on overdrive, your stress response system is on overdrive as well. So having that chronic stress hormone and cortisol in your body, it can lead to like heart disease, it can lead to depleted serotonin, but vice versa. If you have too low serotonin in your body, which can be a chemical thing, biological thing, then you can have more heightened alert or heightened hyperarousal. There you go. Like anxiety. You can also have depression with too low serotonin. So if you're in a chronic state of stress and burnout, yeah, that can make you depressed. I mean, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling miserable, and that can build up and lead to resentment. And that resentment can lead to more mental illnesses. I mean, there are some mental illnesses like ADHD, anxiety that are more chemical and brain and composition based. But things like depression and anxiety and PTSD can come from, and often do, environmental stressors. I mean, PTSD, that does come from environmental stressors, but things like depression, yes, they can be caused by environmental.
Yeah.
And then that second point, like, does that make you more at risk? Like, if you have depression or mental health, does that make you more at risk for the other? It can. It really can. I mean, I have chronic depression when I'm hormonal. I have PMDD. So for that, I have to be aware of self-caring during that week, because any stressor will put me over the edge and make me lose my entire marbles on somebody. And I have to be aware of, during that week, not overbooking myself, not overworking myself, because I know my spoons are going to be low. So I'm not going to go into a war holding a plastic butter knife. And not self-caring would be doing exactly that. It would put me more at risk from burnout.
Yeah. So how has the pandemic impacted burnout levels across various segments of the population? And are there any specific folks, aside from kind of those mental health diagnoses, who are more at risk for burnout right now? And that could be, I mean, age, race, gender, familial role, career, personality. Are any of those more at risk for burnout? You've mentioned therapists already. Like healthcare workers for sure, right? But
for sure.
What about that?
I would say that that's a really loaded question, man.
Yeah.
It definitely has. I mean, looking at societal, looking at stigmas, looking at blatant racism, looking at hate and all the vitriol going on all over the place. Yeah, we're definitely more at risk for burnout. You have people who are dying because of their beliefs. You have people who are dying because of their gender, their sexuality. And of course, that's going to make you more at risk for burnout. I mean, your mere existence is being questioned or threatened. So definitely. And I can speak for those who are more of an introvert, having to be more social and go above and beyond. So personality wise, having to go above and beyond to be more social online and market, rather than just walking into some place and handing a business card or whatever. During a pandemic, no one's taking business cards. So that's making me more burnt out as well. Like, being social is hard. And, all I do is fix everyone's problems every day. I feel you on a spiritual level. Same, fam. But also, yeah, that puts me more at risk of burnout too. And, fellow clinicians, mental health workers, school counselors, teachers, we're taking on a huge role of holding space for people's emotions. But like for me, there's days I don't want to be a therapist. And I mean that in the most loving way possible. But like right now, I know sitting, well, not right now, but in my sessions, I know sitting is the worst thing for my back right now. I know that. And grappling my self-care with my role as a therapist, I need to make a living. And, I could walk around my house, maybe holding my laptop. Ooh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that tomorrow for my session, just
There
walking
you
around my house,
go.
holding my laptop. But it's kind of being aware of my own burnout, but also holding that space, and that is exhausting. So I can't answer for other populations. That's not my place to speak out on that. I am acknowledging my privilege, but I can speak in terms of where I fit in, and I can speak as someone who does have a disability. I am hard of hearing. The burnout is hard, and for me, I was dealing with like medical stuff with people who are wearing masks. Very important medical stuff. Like I'm talking MRIs, possible nerve damage, like it's insane, all for one stupid little accident. But the burnout's real because I go from, not being able to self-care on the weekends and having to fight against healthcare providers who are gaslighting, not being able to read their lips, not being able to understand what they're saying. And then my significant other during the pandemic can't join me to help kind of not mere tell me what they're saying. There you go. Couldn't think of the
Yeah.
word for it. But because he's not interpreting for me, but he's helping me like repeat what they're saying. So, and that's exhausting. So I think really anyone who's going through societal shit and going through societal violence, but also someone who's holding space during all this chaos is hard. So that can be a single mother, that can be a single father, a teacher, a priest, whatever your life path, whatever your career is. I think it's difficult for everybody right now.
Yeah, I agree. So how, after you've been in burnout, how do you regain your balance after that? And how do you start to feel more positive and hopeful again?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I struggle with depression and hard whenever I'm hormonal, which is twice a month. It's so fun, like clockwork, even with medications.
Oh,
And during those times, especially with my accident lining up with that this past week, the burnout was real. It was. And I've noticed what gets me back to that is developing rituals and developing habits. So for me, at the end of a long day, especially if I'm wearing makeup, I take a shower and I literally wash away the day's stressors. And I'll drink water. I have water with me. I mean, minus today, but I'll have water with me, or I have something to look forward to at the end of the day. And lately it's been kicking my significant other's ass on Call of Duty, which is so fun. And it's great because he's been a gamer most of his life and he plays with the guys, and he's a totally different gamer from me. He goes in guns up blazing, like he lives for the battle. So it's kind of interesting to kind of get first place despite not playing his style and seeing how our unique personalities can still win. But I haven't gamed my whole life. Me as a gamer is more of a relatively new thing, at least in the last decade. And it's kind of nice being like, ha, I'm beating you. So having that to look forward to at the end of the day, but also playing with my dogs and having that kind of consistency with my self-care has been huge because I noticed I burn out when my self-care is shit.
Yeah. So are there any resources that are available for someone who is struggling with burnout? And also, how can someone support another person, coworker, friend, or family member who is experiencing burnout?
Yeah, there's so many different apps. There's the Calm app, there's the anti-stress app, there's therapy. Number one, I think that's the best thing. How can you best support a coworker, friend, or family member? Get them connected to resources, because that is not a role you should be taking on yourself, especially for someone who has a mental health disorder. Like, I would never expect my significant other to have the cure for depression or anxiety. But what does help? Making sure I'm drinking water, making sure I'm taking my meds, because I will forget. Or rubbing my head while I lay on his lap or cuddling, those small things. But I think the best way to support your loved one is knowing their, speaking of significant other, hi, honey, love you. Zero will bark until we hold him like a baby. My dogs are clearly so different. I
I
have
love
one who is
it.
total like chaos incarnate, and I literally have Thor and Loki as dogs. 100%.
That's
The
fabulous.
trickster constantly getting into everything, and the other one who's like, "Hello, mother, I love you." So it's
I demand you
100% my
rename
dog.
them right now.
We need to rename our dogs. We have Thor. This is Zero, aka our Thor. Hi, baby
Aw,
boy.
hello. Oh my gosh.
And then we got Luna, who's basically our Loki. Hello.
Oh.
Okay.
They look like a
They
Thor
don't
and
care
a
about
Loki.
me. They literally, oh, hi. That's Luna, our baby girl, who is so vocal today. And this
Aw.
is Zero, who all he cares about is French fries and food.
Fabulous.
So Daddy came home with food. So
Mhm.
they're like, but yeah, I
Give
think
me the
that's the
food.
key of how to support a loved
Yeah.
one. It's definitely knowing their comfort items. Like for
Right.
me, if I'm moody, my significant other knows, like, when was the last time you ate? When was the last time you drank water?
Mhm.
Drink some water. Here's some water. And he'll like forcibly shove water in my
Right.
hand.
Right.
So knowing where your partner kind of fails in terms of self-care on their own, being that reminder of like, hey honey, do you want to take a bath together? Like I'll set up the bubbles for you. That helps so much. But
Yeah.
also therapy, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there any activity that you specifically personally turn to for like insta calm, and why do you think that works or doesn't work for you that way?
Oh, well, before my injury and before the pandemic, it was going to the gym. And for me, it was the endorphins. I loved that rush after a good workout. And I used to do like weight training. So like being able to squat like some gnarly weights is great for my self-confidence. And getting out frustration after a really horrible session sometimes, and just like being able to release before I went home was really nice. They also had the hydro beds at Planet Fitness, which was great, but I don't have that luxury now. So I used to use like the weighted hula hoop before my back was injured, the one that like clips on your waist and it has like the ball that goes
Yep.
around. And I would literally just scroll on TikTok and hula hoop for a bit. And it was great because I had the calming sound of like the little ball going whoosh, whoosh. And it was just kind of calm. For me now, it's Call of Duty because I get to get out all of my rage. And my dogs, honestly, petting my dogs, cuddling with my dogs, like I love them, and they're super cute. And you've seen them; they're derpy. Like Luna was licking the wall the other day, and Bubs is just always smiling. So that is my Instacalm. And why does it work that way? Because they both produce happy chemicals.
Yeah.
Working out produces endorphins, and petting your dogs increases your serotonin. So I'm directly affecting my happy chemicals.
Yep. I love it.
I would enjoy to have a sauna at home. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That would be nice.
Yes.
So when I was telling you before this. Oh, I see it. Okay. I was telling you that I rearranged my desk and stuff, and so not everything is in its place. So I'm going to go grab my magic wand, and while I am grabbing that, you can think about what you would like to have for your second magic moment. So give me just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, I have it. I knew it was here somewhere. So I have my magic wand ready, and with the wave of this magic wand. You are going to get to eliminate one common opinion, misconception, theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or around talking about mental health. So let me turn this on. There we go. And what are you eliminating today?
Talking about suicide isn't going to make someone kill themselves.
Yes.
100%. I say this as someone who has lost several friends to suicide, who has been suicidal myself as well. Talking about it is the biggest thing that can help, because a lot of people are afraid that if they talk about wanting to kill themselves, or if they ask their loved ones, their family members, hey, are you feeling suicidal, that it's going to make the ideation worse. The loneliness is the most dangerous factor, not talking about it. And talking about it normalizes it. And I say this as someone who specializes in working with suicidal ideation as well. A lot of times the biggest supportive factor is having someone to talk to and being able to openly say like, yeah, I'm not doing okay at all. But also knowing the resources, if you are that for somebody, knowing the resources, but talking about mental health, talking about depression, talking about anxiety, talking about ADHD, talking about suicidal ideation is not going to magically make it worse.
Yeah. And you're not going to,
people are afraid.
right. You're not going to put the idea in someone's head either.
No.
I think that that's a big misconception, that if you talk about suicide and you ask someone, have you had suicidal thoughts lately? Have you thought of killing yourself lately? That's not going to make them think, oh, should I have? Is that something I should have been doing? Have I forgotten to do something? Like, no, that's not. It's more like a pressure release valve. You're giving them a safe space to talk about it. And you're giving them a safe space to get things out.
My supervisor actually wrote a wonderful blog on this that I would love to link to for people to explore this further.
Absolutely.
What do I say when I don't know what to say? How do I support a loved one? And her website is guidanceteletherapy.com. And you'll be able to see that under blogs. It should be like one of the most recent ones.
All right.
But amazing. Like what do we ask? What do we say? And I think it's important in that, like, to have support, have those networks.
Yeah.
Dee Dee Hirsch is amazing if you have a loved one who had a suicide attempt or you don't know what to say or whatnot. But don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, you don't want to be overbearing of like, how are you feeling today? You gonna off yourself today? There's a difference. But hey man, how you doing? How you doing? Is there anything I can help with this week? Is there anything I can help you out with today? Do you want me to just sit here and eat a pizza and keep you company? Because sometimes it's that. Sometimes I don't want to talk about how I feel. Sometimes I just want to scroll aimlessly on TikTok while someone else is sitting in the room. And that's okay.
I think I found the right one. Supporting your loved one after a suicide attempt. Is that the right one?
Yes, that one.
Okay. All right. Good. Cool. I'm going to pop that in here.
I wasn't ready for that LOL. I just spit out my water. What did I say? So there you go today.
So I will open it up to the rest of the community. If you guys have any questions for Jessica, please pop them into the chat and we'll go over them. And I'll also just open it up to you and think there's anything we didn't talk about, any resources you want to throw out there. This link was a great one. Sites or things you got coming up or anything like that. I'll just open the floor to you.
Oh, the poem one? Yes, we asked the poem one last time. And I'm actually looking at if I have another one that's dog-eared. I had another book, but I don't remember. Oh, I love this one. This one's kind of fitting. You lose everything when you don't love yourself and gain everything when you do.
I like that.
And also, there is nothing wrong with you. This is growth. This is transformation, protecting yourself, getting lost in the noise, figuring out, feeling used, uncared for, losing hope, burning out. This is fear. This is processing. This is surviving. This is being alive. Journey.
That's beautiful.
I like that one. Button poetry. I love button poetry. Like, it's amazing. I love Rupi. I can't pronounce her last name, but I love Rupi. Homebody is one of my favorite ones. She also wrote Milk and Honey, but I think that's in the dark abyss of my trunk where everything goes and nothing returns. But this one's one of my favorites. There's always sales at Target on this one. But the last one, the one that I shared, was the parade one. So this is my all-time favorite. I have it bookmarked, but I'd love to share it again. I want a parade. I want music. I want confetti. I want a marching band for the ones surviving in silence. I want a standing ovation for every person who wakes up and moves towards the sun when there is a shadow pulling them back on the inside.
I love that one.
We all deserve a parade.
We all deserve a parade. Yeah.
Hard. Yeah. I want to break with confetti
Absolutely.
and puppies and cookies. Like everyone would just get like a bucket of cookies.
Yes,
Like
please.
legit. I went to this it was like a huge concert and I was like super drunk. But one of the only times I get like schmammered, because concerts, of course you gotta double fist it. But this lady was selling a bucket full of cookies. A bucket of cookies. And I think everyone deserves that in their life. A bucket of cookies. And
Absolutely.
confetti.
Cookies and
100%.
confetti. I love it.
Yes.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for taking the time today and joining us again. I hope that this wasn't too long. I hope that your back is able to feel better after this. And don't forget to drink your water.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you got as much out of that conversation with Jessica as I did when we first had it. We covered a lot of ground, everything from self-love and self-care to setting boundaries and recognizing burnout before it takes over your life. What I loved most about Jessica's approach is how practical and real it is. Self-care isn't always glamorous or easy, but it's something we all need to make time for, even when it feels impossible. Burnout is one of those things that creeps up on you, especially when you're putting everyone else's needs before your own. Whether it's work, family, or just life in general, we can get caught up in the hustle and forget that we matter too. Jessica's tips about watching for the signs, whether it's emotional exhaustion, physical fatigue, or that creeping sense of overwhelm, are things we can all apply to our everyday lives. It's about finding what works for you, whether that's a simple break, creating boundaries, or maybe even playing a video game to blow off some steam. Remember, self-love isn't selfish. And if you're feeling burnout, it's okay to pause, take a step back, and say, I need this time for me. In fact, it's necessary. If something from today's episode hit home for you, let me know. Shoot me a message or leave a comment wherever you're listening. I love hearing how these conversations resonate with you. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a rating wherever you're listening. Reviews and ratings really help get the word out so we can keep spreading these important conversations. And if you know someone who's struggling with burnout or just needs a reminder to take care of themselves, share this episode with them. You never know who might need to hear it. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you next time on Even Tacos Fall Apart. Take care of yourselves because you deserve it.